Hello there. This is James, and you're watching OneRoyal, and it's live. In today's program, I want to discuss what an absolute crazy week we've had in the markets. Plus, talk about another potential crazy week happening next week. But before we get into all of that, don't forget these little videos are for educational purposes only, and in no way whatsoever should ever be taken as financial advice. I always suggest you do your own research, do your due diligence, and of course, know the risks at hand before entering any trade. With that out of the way, let's get started. So, indeed, we've had a very, very strange week. I mean, it's strange days indeed, isn't it? I mean, it has been such a roller coaster this week, and the market has unusually than it usually does, more so, I would say, acted like a complete roller coaster. Because what a week indeed we had, because at the end of the day, the market is indeed entering a new type of cold war. And we've seen the whole markets perform like, across the board, perform really, really badly. I mean, for example, the S&P 500 has had its worst performance since 2020. And this is the height of COVID back then. And all this is because of one thing, which is obviously the trade war and tariff threats. And the thing is, it's not stopping. It's in fact, it seems to be escalating. Because as I've mentioned before, are we entering a new type of Cold War? I mean, because I guess the old argument, boys will be boys, but what we are looking at the moment is the world's two biggest economies going tit for tat against each other. They really are tit for tat going against each other. I mean, it's madness. I mean, like I say, if we look at it, I mean, today, not today. Let's go through the history of this potential Cold War. After obviously initially Trump's administration, implemented 54% tariffs on China. China retaliated with 34%. Trump then retaliated back with 104% tariffs. China then punched back with 84% tariffs on US goods. The White House yesterday then said, right, we're going to give you 145% tariffs on some Chinese goods. And then today, China announces 125% tariffs on US goods. So, like I say, you've got the two biggest two of the world's biggest economies, having who will blink first type of competition. Yes, China exports, US is their biggest purchaser of their goods. But so is America, the biggest purchaser of Chinese goods. Yes, the deficit is, a lot bigger. But anyway, I mean, this whole week has been nothing but twists and turns. I mean, let's just add more drama, the twists of everything. Let's go back and let's have a look over the last couple of days of what has happened. like I said, the market has been suffering the worst it has since the outbreak of COVID in 2020. However, Wednesday, Trump announced a 90-day pause on major tariffs. Okay, so it's Wednesday. That's a good question. Let's have a question here. Which one will back down? Trump is too arrogant too, and the Chinese can go further if they wanted to. That's a very good question. Funny Doop. I love the name. Very good question. Look, answer that question. I don't think, China won't back down. They won't back down. What will end up happening, a part of this whole drama, is eventually they will find common ground. And they'll work out some sort of trade agreement because, like I said, they're the world's two biggest economies and they need each other. However, China is starting to reach out to the EU, interesting enough, to try and broker a couple of deals on that side of things. But like I say, neither will really back down on this. It's a case of them trying to find common ground to end this madness. But what a great question nonetheless. But anyway, let's go back. Let's go through the madness of this week. Like I was saying, the market has been experiencing its worst performance of COVID of 2020. And then, here's another good question. Has Trump bitten off more than he can chew? Okay, again, this is just my opinion. I don't want to get necessarily get political. But yes, I think he has. I think he sees this situation quite differently, or had a bigger plan of this. And unfortunately, because again, like the Chinese position, they're very stuck in their ways. He can't get himself out of it. If he gets himself out of it, so to speak, is by making trade deals, which of course then he will put off as a win and say this was all part of his plan. But yes, in my opinion, again, it's my opinion only. My opinion only. I do think indeed he's bitten off a little bit more than he can chew, because we can see that with the market reaction. But again, a great point, a great question. So Trump announced this 90-day pause on Wednesday, and guess what? There was much rejoicing in the market. In fact, the S&P had its biggest rally since 2008. There was much rejoicing. But then reality kicked in. The market suddenly went, hang on a second. This is what the market does. Sometimes it has a knee-jerk reaction and then it dissects it. It takes a little while sometimes for it to go into details with a microscope and then realizing, hang on a second. Because reality kicked in. And they realized that 10% baseline tariffs still exist across the globe. 25% tariffs on steel and aluminium. That's right, I said aluminium. 25% on car and car part imports. And the trade war between US and China. So all of a sudden, things didn't start looking quite as rosy. And really, uncertainty grips the market. Which then leads to another question. Again, I'm not accusing anything in particular. Okay, good question again here, before I go on to my next point. Do you think it helped the US with the EU having a 90-day pause too? Of course it did. That's a very good question. But yes, it helped with the US then arguing that people are looking to negotiate and make trade deals. So yes, whether or not the EU should have done that, again, it's a different opinion. Maybe they should have held a bit stronger because they're still paying tariffs. Don't forget. They're still paying the 10%, not 20%, but 10% like everybody else. And they're still paying 25% on steel and aluminium. and they're still paying 25% on cars and car parts. So clearly, it gives the US a little bit more leg room, saying, look, we did this and they've done that for us, so this is working. So yeah, in that argument, but then in many ways, potentially, maybe the EU should have, again, the EU are actually meeting again today to discuss retaliation as well. So it's not like they've rolled over. It's the case that they are still looking at their options. Another question as well: what will the US do about Canada and Mexico? Seem like it's old news now. It's still very much in play. Of course, it hasn't gone away. Don't forget, Mark Carney, the Prime Minister of Canada, is reaching out to Europe and the UK to retaliate against the US or have new trading partners. So it's still very much in full swing on that side. So though it's not gone away and it won't go away, it's just fallen under the limelight because, of course, China and US trade war. And another question here as well, very good. Each week, Trump moves to something else to mess with and forgets the mess he made previously. Unfortunately, again, very valid point. It sort of moves on perfectly onto my point I was going to say next. And that is Trump controlling the market? You know, I've been doing live broadcasts now for many years. Okay, I do watch-alongs. I do live coverage of economic data. The only time I can remember a market being a bit like this at the moment, where economic data didn't really matter, because economic data is coming out, we're not paying attention to it. The only other time I can think of which is similar to this, which I witnessed, and I used to do broadcasts on this, was 2022, when a certain Prime Minister of the UK made reckless decisions about what they were going to do with tax breaks, and it crashed the UK market. And then as soon as she reversed her decisions, the market went back up again. Now, this is something very similar, which I'm seeing now, but the difference is this time it's not just the UK it's affecting the global market. So very similar to what was happening back then. And don't forget, again, I'm not casting aspersions or accusations whatsoever, but don't forget, as the market's already, many analysts have already pointed out, on the Wednesday before he announced the 90-day pause, Trump tweeted out on his Truth Social, whatever his network is, saying today's a good day to buy. Several hours later, he then announces to the world he's doing a 90-day pause, which caused the market. There was much rejoicing. So again, there is that sort of side thing. I'm not, but this is the thing. I haven't seen a market like this since 2022, where a single person in power is making all the difference between the market going up and the market going down. But anyway, as it stands, what's really happening? What's happening in the market overall? Well, we're seeing a flight to safety. Obviously, we're so uncertain, the market is going to go towards safe havens. And of course, if you know me, it would be my show if I didn't talk about it. Gold, of course, has hit a new all-time high once again. And I tell you, we'll bring up the charts in a minute. And as I've been speaking in the last 30 minutes, it's hit a new all-time high again. Now, here's the thing. What a lot of analysts are saying about gold. This is a precious metal research for a Singapore investment company. I won't attempt to say the name because I will butcher it. I'm rubbish at names. But this young lady did to say, gold is the best place to be in the market right now. She went on to say this: the unprecedented trade tensions has deepened the distrust in the US dollar, intensifying the demand for other safety assets. And this leads on to another thing, which is also the knock-on effect, which we've seen over the last couple of trading sessions, is we're seeing a weaker US dollar. So yes, a weaker US dollar as well. In fact, the euro has hit levels not seen since 20. Sorry, I cut myself out there. I said levels not seen since 2022. A bit too keen to show the video. As well as that, the Japanese yen and Swiss franc has also gained strength due to the safe haven status. Anyway, enough about that. Let's get on to the market and have a look and see exactly what it's looking like at the moment. So let's start off with gold. Of course, it's going to be gold. Of course, I'm going to talk about gold straight away. Like I say, it's hit an all-time high once again, purely driven by safe haven status. It's currently trading at $3,230. I mean, don't forget, UBS said their target for the end of the year was $3,300. We're practically $60 away from that as it stands. If we look at the daily here, look at on a daily. I mean, it seems to be this rally on gold is really being driven by obviously total uncertainty happening in the market, total chaos with this trade war, and the fact that since really 2023, the central banks are building up on their reserves. They know they're nervous. So, I mean, I remember it was only, when was it? It was only the middle of March. It came and hit $3,000 on the tail end of March 17th. Then since then, we're hitting higher highs. So the yellow metal is indeed shining brightly. My only concern, okay, obviously, if the fundamentals stay in place and we carry on with this uncertainty, then it's going to shine. My only concern is maybe looking at it a little bit, we could potentially see an Elliott wave or the fifth wave of the Elliott wave, meaning it's maybe ready for correction. But again, if the fundamentals remain in place, then potentially gold can indeed continue. And many investment banks are putting their expectations for gold up higher. Let's go on to the S&P, see how the S&P is opened, because it's had a real chaotic week. I think this week has been crazy. It's been absolutely insane. We're trading a little bit above the 5,000 point mark. You know, it touched 4,000, but this is the crazy day. I mean, it started the week lower with more losses, and then all of a sudden, crazy Wednesday, it managed to have the best rally since 2008, and then since then it's come under pressure, and now it's capped again as the market is sort of realizing what's potentially ahead. Nasdaq's the same. The VIX still above the 30 level, showing that the market is still extremely nervous. Let's move on to the euro, because like I say, the euro, I cut myself out earlier on when I was showing a little video there. Euro is trading at levels we have not seen since 2022. Currently trading at 1.13425, all because we are facing a weaker greenback. Same with the cable as well. Cable's at 130 now as well. If we move on to the dollar yen, trading at 143. Remember last week when I was talking about this particular pair, it was trading at 149. We were saying that the yen may potentially get this safe haven status, you know, in the driving seat on that. And finally, let's have a quick look at the Dow as well before we move on. The Dow, again, still keeping some of its gains from Wednesday, but still very much under pressure as the market just doesn't know. It's so uncertain. Like I say, these are indeed strange days indeed. Still to come today, which could be just as interesting. I could even put more of an issue on the market, and that is, of course, U.S. consumer sentiment, and that's due, in fact, in 9 minutes. Now, don't forget the previous record was at the lowest level since November 2022. Now, I can't help but think, with all this news about trade wars, tariffs, how the consumer is going to be thinking right now, what their sentiment's going to be. So that's going to be something interesting. Like I say, that's happening in 9 minutes' time. Anyway, so that's this week. Speed madness. Absolutely chaotic. Chaos. It's like watching an episode of Friends with Ross and Rachel. Will they, won't they? What will happen next? You just don't know. It's been one of those weeks. But anyway, next week, we got plenty to look forward to as well. We got UK unemployment, Bank of Canada CPI, US retail sales. That's going to be interesting. Bank of Canada interest rate decision and ECB interest rate decision. But really, like I said earlier on, we always talk about economic data. But at this very moment in time, it's all about Trump, his tariffs, and the trade war. That is what the market is focusing on. Don't forget, of course, this is a live show, and you can talk to me anytime you wish, or share with me your opinions, of course. Like I've had several questions today. Been very good questions and very good thoughts. A little comment here. What a week. Yeah. No. What will come next week? Oh, great joke. Thanks, James. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, what a week indeed. It's been absolutely madness. I mean, next week, we just don't know. I mean, that's the funny thing about the market at the moment. We're not sure what's going to happen and what Trump's going to do. So that's really gonna drive it. And like I say, there's some key economic data coming out next week. Key economic data, but the market won't focus on that. The market will be focusing on what develops with this trade war, and that's going to be the main focus completely. Anywho, don't forget, of course, if you're watching this broadcast recorded or watching the recording, because I noticed a lot of you watch the recording, not actually the live show. If you do have a question, okay, and you're watching on YouTube or watching on Twitter, you can put it in the comments below. I will see the comments and I will reply to it next time I go live on air, which of course will be Monday, for another exciting packed week, which I can't wait for. As well as that, if you are indeed watching me on YouTube, subscribe if you like. Hit the notification button so you know next time I'm going live. And if you like this type of content and you put up with me, by all means, give me one of these. It's nice to know that you like what I do. Same with that, if you're watching me on Twitter, or what is it, X now? I'm too old. I can't keep up with the times. By all means, give us a follow or give us a little heart if you like. So you do hearts from there, not likes. Anyway, if there is no further questions, not a problem. I will, if there's no further questions, in that case, don't forget, these little videos are for educational purposes only, and in no way whatsoever should ever be taken as financial advice. I always suggest you do your own research, do your own diligence, and of course, know the risks at hand before entering any trade. Till next time, every single one of you, trade safe.